Hello, I'm Morag, and welcome to this special episode of Sense Making in a Changing World podcast, a conversation from the 2024 International Permaculture Festival of Ideas. In this festival, I invited my friends and colleagues to join me in conversation, ideas sharing, music, film screening, poetry reading, and storytelling. I was joined by educators, Indigenous leaders, designers, artists, scientists, activists, scholars, practitioners, philosophers, writers, filmmakers, and musicians, exploring ways to broaden and deepen permaculture possibilities. There were 35 speakers at the live event across 8 days in May 2024, spanning 6 continents and over 2,500 registered people for these live events. What an extraordinary event, and I'm so honoured, delighted to be able to share these with you. In this episode, I'm joined by my dear friend and mentor, Satish Kumar. He shares how we can transform from ecological crisis, conflict, and scarcity into one in which we experience harmony with nature, safety, and abundance, and how to move from separation to connection with the earth, with each other, and with ourselves. Before we head to the conversation, I'd first like to acknowledge that I'm recording this episode from my hand-built, solar-powered studio here in beautiful Gubbi Gubbi country with Jinnaburra lands to the east. I'm surrounded here by my permaculture forage gardens in a permaculture eco-village. This podcast is a project of the Permaculture Education Institute. We teach permaculture design, teaching, and livelihood skills online to people on 6 continents, who in turn localise and enrich it and find appropriate ways to apply the planet care ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share wherever they are. Check the links below to find out more about our programs. And remember to subscribe to Sense Making the Changing World on your favourite podcast app, to share it freely, and to leave us, please, a 5-star review and a lovely comment, because it really does indeed help people to find this podcast. All right, well, let's now turn to my conversation with Satish. He says to see peace in our lifetimes, we have to practice love, radical love. I would like to welcome to our session right now, Satish Kumar. Satish has been someone who's been so important in my life for a very long time. Satish started Schumacher College, which you may well have heard spoken about with so much love many times throughout this festival from many of our speakers, including Daniel Christian Weil and Fritjof Capra and Helena Norberg Hodge. So they all talked about Satish. So here, Satish is joining us now. He's also the editor for over 4 decades of Resurgence and the Ecologist Magazine, a peace pilgrim, written so many books, incredible amount of books, Satish. I'm not going to list them all here, but one of your most recent books is Radical Love. And that's what we titled the talk today. And also because there's a film that's just recently come out too called Radical Love. Satish has always been an activist in his life. And I thought perhaps we could begin there, Satish. What does it mean to you to be an activist? And welcome from my bottom of my heart for you to be here today.
First of all, Morag, I would like to congratulate you for organizing this wonderful festival of ideas around permaculture and all the big issues of our time. So thank you and congratulations. And yes, I have been an activist since I was 18 years old. And now this year I'll be 88. So it's a long time of activism. Now, my definition of activism is very simple. If you do something for yourself, earning your living or doing whatever you are doing, that's okay. But if you do something for the world, if you are doing something for humanity, if you are doing something for our planet Earth, you are doing something in the service of our forest and animals, or humans, or indigenous people, or anything, then you are an activist. Activist does not mean, in my view, that you have to be just demonstrating in front of parliaments and presidents' houses and so on. You can be a teacher of a gardener. You can be a teacher of cooking. You can be a teacher of something. But if you are doing something for the others in the service of humanity, then you are an activist. You can be an activist at many levels in many, many ways. So I want to take the many people activists. They don't realize that they are activists, but they are activists if they are in the service of humanity, and others. So that's my definition. Now, I am an activist, but also I'm an optimist, because I think activism requires optimism. If you are a pessimist, Morag, you give up. You just say, oh, why bother? Nothing is going to change. Nobody's listening to me. There's no point in doing anything. So I would say you need to be an optimist, a hopeful. You have to have hope in your heart. But hope has to be active hope. Activism means active hope, not that something will turn up, something will, God will look after me, I don't have to worry. Not that kind of hope, but hope that yes, a better world is possible, and I'm going to help to make it. I'm going to help to realize it. I call it active hope. So activism and optimism go together. If you're a pessimist, you can be a journalist, but not an activist. And so I would say that's my definition of activism.
Thank you, Satish. And I remember you talking many times about your inspiration to become an activist. I mean, you set off on quite an extraordinary journey in your 20s and inspired by activists who were probably about your age now, Bertrand Russell, who was doing extraordinary things. Can you tell us a bit about what it was that he was doing that inspired you? Because I think there's something in about what was happening then that's so relevant to what's going on in the world today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. My inspiration to become an peace activist and also a peace pilgrim came from a 90-year-old Nobel Prize winning philosopher and scientist called Bertrand Russell. He was a peace activist, and he was protesting against the nuclear bombs and nuclear weapons and arms race and wars. And at the moment, we are facing great problems in the Gaza war and Ukraine war, and the tension between Russia and America, and the tension between Russia, Iran and Europe and America, and so many problems. So I think Bertrand Russell was here today. He will be talking to Putin and Biden and Xi Jinping and other leaders of the world, and asking them that what kind of legacy are you going to leave? Are you going to be remembered like a Hitler or like a Mussolini or Stalin, or are you going to be remembered like a Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, somebody who made effort to make peace in the world? So what kind of leadership are you giving Netanyahu, Putin, Biden, all these great leaders? They are just repeating the same mistakes. And so Bertrand Russell was my inspiration. At age 90, he was protesting against war, arms race, and in particular nuclear bomb. And so he was arrested. At age 90, Lord Bertrand Russell, Nobel Prize winner, world famous, author of Principia Mathematica, and he was put in jail. What more do you need to be inspired? I was so touched. I was so moved. I was in tears to see that such an old man is so committed to bring peace in the world, that I and my friend decided that we must join this great man and his movement. And so he, my friend E.P. Menon, and I together started to walk as an activist from India, from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi, to make peace in the world. And we walked through 15 countries, over 8,000 miles, which is 13,000 kilometers, for peace, and without any money in our pocket. So that was our participation and our offering in the great peace movement led by Bertrand Russell in 1962.
Manish Jain has been talking about these cycle yatras, and we've also heard of from Kaibo Oiwa while we've been here in the festival too about the caravan of hope. And there's been a talk about this just even earlier today about how could we restart something like this, like a caravan of hope, another peace pilgrimage. Where would you suggest starting something like that? What would that look like for you, do you think? How would one go about it?
First of all, I would like to say that all the people around the world, like yourself, like Manish Jain, like Vandana Shiva, like Helen Norberg Hodge, and many, many others are doing something which is absolutely remarkable, because in their own place, in their own community, wherever they are starting something. So I think this gives me great hope. And these people are, like you have shown through your permaculture festival in this program, but also in other programs, you have shown that these grassroots activists, they are the salt of the earth, and they are inspiring many, many young people to become activists in the future. And so I think we should celebrate, and we should take hope, and we should admire and appreciate, and say that we are on a good path. And there are millions of people around the world. They may not be in the news. Greta Thunberg is in the news, of course, but they may not be much in the news. But there are millions of people, thousands of organizations, little everywhere, in Africa, in India, in China. I go Schumacher College. Schumacher College is now in Brazil, in Colombia, in China, in India, in Brazil, in Belgium, in France. And so these are activists. So I think we should have a great celebration that there is activism spreading. And there are many books being written, many films are being made, many kind of projects are being started, permaculture, organic farming, and whole food, and biodiversity, all these things, and local economy like Helena, and so on. So I think we have got a big movement already there, and that is growing. And because of climate change and global warming and the pollution of air and the pollution of our oceans and destruction of our rainforests and cruelty to animals, these things are making people worried. They are saying, what are we doing to our planet Earth? What are we doing to our future generations? What kind of a legacy are we going to leave? This polluted and a kind of contaminated planet for our future generations? Or are we living? Are we going to leave a beautiful and a sustainable and regenerative and a beautiful planet Earth for future generations? So I think we have to wake up. And lots of movements are there that gives me hope. And so we need to of course, spread more and become widespread. But the real revolution will come from the grassroots. It will not come from the White House or from the Kremlin or from any Palais Élysée or any centers of power. The real change always comes from the bottom. Martin Luther King did not start from the White House, and Mahatma Gandhi did not start from the Kremlin. They started at the grassroots level. So you and I, and all the people you have involved in this festival are working at the grassroots level. That's where the real leadership will emerge. And new Mahatma Gandhi, new Martin Luther King, new Greta Thunberg, which is already there, and many, and new Morag and the new Satish will emerge. And so we should continue on our path with great enthusiasm and a great optimism and a great hope and a great activism. That's all we can do.
Yes, thank you, Satish. Absolutely. And I think this is a good reminder. We often sort of stop and go, but we need to be doing more. What could be more doing? And just to acknowledge that there is so much going on, and to celebrate what is already happening, and to shine a light on what's already happening. And I know this is one of your key, theories of change, is to celebrate, isn't it? Like, this big part.
And I always say to our activist friends, let's act out of love, not out of anger, not out of fear, not out of anxiety. Because if you act out of anger, fear, and anxiety, you will have burnout. You cannot sustain yourself for a long time. 4 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, and then you say, God, what can I do? Nothing is changing. So do not, all activists, I ask them that act out of love. out of optimism, out of just service to humanity. We are acting as a service, as our offering to humanity, in the service of planet Earth, in the service of our land and animals and forests and oceans and rivers and mountains and our future generations. So it is our service, it's our offering. We are not trying to achieve anything for ourselves. We have no ambition, we have no ego. It's not out of ego. Because if you act out of love, you will sustain yourself for all of your life. And I want to remain an activist until the last breath of my life. I don't want to be burned out. I want our activists to be happy activists, not miserable activists, not pessimist activists, not miserable, but happy activists. So this is why I always say act out of love and act out of enthusiasm and commitment and joy and celebration, and not anger, fear, and anxiety.
How do you sustain that level of enthusiasm and active hope, Satish? Because you're also well aware of all the things that are going on in the world, and I'm sure that you feel that too. How do you transform that into this positive, active hope?
You see, it's very easy to just look at the negative. It's very easy because there's the news. And in the news, only war is reported, and a murder is reported, and pollution is reported. But all the good things are happening in the world are not reported in the news. But if you look at the world, maybe there's a war in Gaza and Ukraine, but there are 200 nations in the world. Out of 200 nations, 190 or 95 nations are at peace. And you have to look at that. And you have to see the small farmers around the world, in Africa, in Asia, in South America, are growing food for the people, growing vegetables and herbs for the people, fruit for the people. And you can say millions and billions of mothers are giving love to their children and bringing them up to be good citizens. And there are millions and billions of teachers who are teaching young children to be good citizens. And there are millions and billions of doctors and nurses who are looking after healing people and their disease. And so much more positive news is happening in the world, but that's not reported. So we have to look and see, put the problems in perspective. And we have to have a deep sense of gratitude. We have to say that thank you, all the world, that you are doing good things, and what you are doing is sustaining the world. World is not sustained by war in Gaza and war in Ukraine. World is sustained by people who are working for peace at the grassroots level: teachers, doctors, nurses, farmers, gardeners, and writers and poets and artists and singers and musicians. They are the majority. We are the majority. We are sustaining the world. World is not sustained by Netanyahu and Putin and Ukraine and Gaza. World is sustained by you and me and millions of others who are writing poetry, singing music. John Lennon, John Baez, and many others poets. So I would say I keep my optimism by looking at the positive side, that we are the majority and we are doing good work in the world, and we should keep doing that.
And in order to share that, I mean, you've created quite incredible places that host conversations, both Schumacher College, you created the small school, you created the, this space around the Resurgence Trust and all the Resurgence magazine, where these conversations can be had. And I remember asking you a while ago, saying, "So how do you do that?" And you said, "Well, just do it, Morag. You just start creating." So, but can you speak a bit about creating these places where the good news can be shared? Like, say, for example, Schumacher.
Sometimes people underestimate and underrate and undervalue their own capacity and their own potential. Each and every one of us have a potential to rise to the challenge and create something amazing, something wonderful. An artist or an activist is not a special kind of person, but every person is a special kind of activist and artist. And so we need to recognize our own potential and our own possibilities and our own energy. So imagine what you can do. Imagination is a very important role to play. And I started Schumacher College particularly because I thought that our education is part of the problem. We are educating millions and millions of young people around the world, China, India, Australia, Africa, America, Europe, everywhere. We are educating our young people to be a part of the same economic growth and same industrial system and kind of education of half brain, left brain. And so I thought that we need to create a new leadership and a new generation of young people who can be holistic thinkers and who can be holistic activists. And therefore, education of head, education of heart, education of hands, and learning from nature. Nature is not just as a resource for the economy. Nature is our teacher. And that is at Schumacher College and the small school and Resurgence, all the things. So I think how I did is a kind of grace of the universe. But I would say everybody is capable of doing it. I'm nothing special. I'm nothing special. I have two hands, two arms, two legs, two eyes, as everybody has. And we all have a brain. Everybody has a brain. We all have a heart. Everybody has a heart. And so I'm nothing special. Everybody is capable of doing it. So whoever is listening to me, please start something. Don't worry about starting big. Start small. Small is beautiful. Every small action adds up. A great tree, oak tree, comes out of one single small acorn. And so your small action, your small activity will have big consequence. And so do not worry about bigness or success tomorrow, immediate success, but start whatever you can now, today, in a small way, and that will have big consequence. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And, you know, listening to Kaibo Owa yesterday, he was talking about his book, Slow is Beautiful. And, you know, you talked about Schumacher's works, Small is Beautiful. And I saw that you were interviewed too by Kaibo in one of his films. And you named Schumacher College after Fritz Schumacher. Where did you come across Schumacher's work and how did it inspire, like, how did you come to say, right, Schumacher College should be called Schumacher?
Okay. I mean, it was Schumacher who, I had a common friend, so somebody introduced me to Schumacher, and he was an associate editor of Resurgence Magazine. And at that time, when I met Schumacher, there was no editor. The editor had gone to work in Zambia for President Kaunda. And so they were looking for an editor. And Schumacher said, he said to me, I read your essays, I heard your speeches, and you have been teaching Gandhian values and so on. You are the kind of person I am looking for to be an editor of Resurgence Magazine. But I said, but Dr. Schumacher, I'm going back to India. I want to work with the Gandhian movement. He said, but Satish, there are many Gandhians in India. We need one in England. So please stay and become the editor and make Resurgence a Gandhian magazine. And Gandhian values are same as our values of ecology, of peace, of nonviolence, of love, of looking after our land, looking after our animals, and looking after our people and communities. All these values are eternal, perennial, Gandhian, and everything. And so he persuaded me to become the editor. And so I became the editor in 1973. And I was editor until 2016. So 43 years I was editor of the magazine. And Resurgence will be celebrating the 60th anniversary in 2026. So for 60 years, Resurgence has been here serving the humanity, serving the environmental movement and ecology movement, and serving all the right values of Schumacher. So Schumacher and I worked together for many years, and he wrote in every single issue of Resurgence. And so he and I became good friends. And his Small is Beautiful was a very big influence on many, many people. So when he passed away, we said we must keep his legacy and his name alive. And therefore, we should start Schumacher College. Schumacher Lectures, we started first, and then Schumacher Society, and then Schumacher College. And I was very lucky because Dartington Hall in South Devon in England had this beautiful old building called the Old Postern with 40 bedrooms, which used to be a school. And that school closed for some reason. And so I said to Dartington trustees that what are you going to do with these buildings? 40 bedrooms, an old beautiful 15-room old postern. And so I said, I want to start Schumacher College. Can you give me this building? And they reluctantly in the beginning, but in the end, enthusiastically, they became enthusiastic after listening to my argument. And so they gave me the building, Old Postern, and 40 bedrooms for 5 years in the beginning. So take for 5 years, and if you are successful, then we will see. If not successful, we'll take it back. And but very first course we ran with James Lovelock. And James Lovelock's course on Gaia was completely sold out. And so forever since, we had Christoph Capra, Vandana Shiva, Arne Ness, and David Orr, and yourself, and many, many others who came to Schumacher College as students, as teachers, and Schumacher College has been going now for 32 years, 33 years, and it's a great success.
Yeah, absolutely. And transformed so many people's lives and myceliated out across the planet in terms of its impact. It's absolutely extraordinary what you've been able to create there. Really amazing. I wanted to ask you, because you're about to go, later this year, you're going back to India to co-teach a course with Vandana Shiva at her center, which is an Earth University, another ecoversity project. Can you tell us about the work that you do with Vandana
Yes.
Shiva?
Vandana is my great friend. We have known each other for nearly 35 years or 40 years. She has taught at Schumacher College. And she has this 25-acre farm with 500 mango trees on this farm. And I visited that farm about 25 years ago or something. And I said to Vandana, who already had been to Schumacher College, that we need a Schumacher College in India. And so why don't you start a Schumacher College type of a center in India? And she liked the idea. And she said, yes, that's a good idea. Will you come and teach? And so I've been going and teaching there ever since. And so it's in North India, in the foothills of Himalayas, a town called Dehradun, which is near town, about 15 or 20 miles. And it's a very beautiful place. And Vandana is the great champion of seed saving. And so we call this university or this school, first of all, a seed college. Bija is a Hindi word, Bija Vidyapith. So seed college. And then Earth University, we called it. So the easier name. And so there we run courses on organic farming, on permaculture, on agroecology, and A to Z of organic farming. And also we run courses on Gandhi and globalization, and Gandhian peace, peace within yourself, peace with people, peace with nature, and peace with the planet, at all levels of peace. And so this year, in November, from 18th to 22nd of November, I and Vandana together, we will be teaching a course there. So if any of your listeners are interested, please look up and look out for it and come to attend course where Vandana and I will be there together and teaching. So this is a very beautiful place in the foothills of Himalayas, and a very nice nearby town called Rishikesh, which is a great Hindu philosophy and Hindu culture and yoga and meditation center, Rishikesh. and there are Haridwar, another great place of pilgrimage. So it's a very beautiful area. So if anybody wants to come, they can come. And Vandana is a great champion of ecology, of permaculture, of agroecology, of seed saving, of holistic worldview, and ecological worldview, and a local economy, and many, many good things. She is a great leader and great champion. So it's my great pleasure and honor to work with her and be her friend.
And I hope to be joining you there and take my daughter as well to come and join you over there. And from there, you're going to Taiwan. I wanted to ask you about your latest book about radical love. And I think you've touched on it quite a lot as you've spoken now, but what do you really mean by radical love? And what are the kind of the key principles that you talk about in your book about radical love?
Yes, there are two kinds of love, Morag. One is I call moderate love, and the other is radical love. Moderate love is to love somebody you like your teachers, your friends, your colleagues, your parents, your brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, children, and anybody you like. So that's a moderate love. Also, when you love somebody, you expect that person to love you back. So you have expectation. And so that's a moderate love. But radical love is to love people even if you don't like them. Even if they are not agreeable to you. They may not be nice to you. They may not love you back. And yet you have a kind of unconditional and unlimited and without any expectation, you just love. And through love, you transform them if they are, love can transform. Hatred cannot transform. Hatred can only kill. Hatred can only deny, but cannot transform. Only the power of love that can transform a human being from an ordinary to an extraordinary person. And so loving without expectation, loving even those you don't like, and putting love before anything else, that's a radical love. When you have a radical love, then you say love first, then democracy. Because democracy, everybody talks about democracy, democracy, democracy. But democracy is no guarantee for good government. You can elect Hitler. Hitler was elected by democratic means, by popular vote. And many, many others, extreme left wing, extreme right wing, leaders can be elected. So democracy is no guarantee of good government without love. So love first, then democracy. In the same way, love first, then science. Science, everybody says science, 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 like democracy. Science is a kind of great thing. But science can produce nuclear bomb. Science can produce genetically engineered seeds. Science can produce global warming, climate change. All this scientific innovation through a combination of technology and commerce and the military and government, science can be misguided. So science is not good enough without love. So love first, then science. In the same way, truth. Truth is no guarantee for harmony or peace. It can be your truth or my truth, and I can kill other people for my truth, and I'm right, you are wrong. We can fight and kill each other. Truth can be divisive, but love can be uniting. And so before democracy, before science, before truth, before religion, before commerce, before anything else, you put love first. That is radical love. I mean, my book has explained everything in it, but in a nutshell, that's I mean by radical love.
And there's a film that's coming out by the same name, done by a young Brazilian man. Now, food is a big central part of everything you talk about, and love, community, peace building through food. And it's one of the first things that I remember about all of the things you're talking about is how to come together around food. And actually, I'm reminded every day by it because I have Julia's book, who's the head of food at Schumacher College, always out on our table, and we're always sharing that. And I'm always reminded of the times when we cook together and the importance of doing simple things like cooking and growing together and eating together, and how this can transform and shift our lives. So Recently, Schumacher College has focused a lot more on food education, and I wonder whether you could talk a bit about the kinds of education that you feel we need today, and particularly around shifting our food culture.
Yes, I think our children need to learn how to grow food. Every school in the world, in Australia, America, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, everywhere in the world, we have millions of schools. Every school should have a garden. That's the food culture. Education of food. If children don't know how a tiny seed of tomato can create a beautiful plant and create beautiful flowers out of that seed, and a beautiful tomatoes, green and then yellow and then red and then juicy and then fragrant and nutritious and healthy and delicious. How do you learn that unless you go through the process and see the miracle of nature? And therefore, first principle of food and a kind of first principle of our health is to grow food. Every school, every university, every college in the world. And as you have a science teacher, you have maths teacher, you have gym teacher, you have teachers of every kind, but no gardening teacher. You have sports teacher, but no gardening teacher. Garden is your gym. Garden is your cricket. Garden is your football. You don't need any gymkhana. You need to go in the garden to be healthy. And so if you want to have, this is why we created a garden at Schumacher College, and cooking together, gardening together, being out in nature, touching the soil, because we are soil. Our body is soil transformed. We are called human beings. You know the word human, Morag, comes from humus. And humus in Latin means soil. So human beings are literally soil beings. We are made of soil. We are made of food. Without food, we cannot exist. But at the moment, we don't pay for food. We don't cook food. We don't grow food. We think food is just a kind of a little bypass. We are watching television, eating food, McDonald's and a kind of Kentucky Fried, and all that kind of ready-made sandwiches in the supermarkets. That's no good. That's no good. No good health and no good ecology, no good environment. So I insist that everybody who eat should be participating in growing food. You are prime minister, so what? You are president, so what? You must be a gardener. And you know, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama started a garden in the White House. And that was wonderful. And I think when the King Charles was Prince Charles, he created a very beautiful garden or farm. And I was invited by Prince Charles at that time. And I saw him with a fork and a spade and a Wellington boots working in the garden. If Prince Charles can be a gardener, and if Barack Obama and Michelle Obama can be a gardener, why not Biden, and why not Xi Jinping, and why not Putin, and why not Modi, and why not your Prime Minister in Australia? So everybody who eat must participate in growing food, knowing permaculture, knowing agroecology, knowing organic way of producing food, knowing the many, many good ways to relate to the earth. It's a miracle that you plant one seed in the ground, and that one seed of mango becomes a tree and produces thousands of mangoes year after year after year for 50 years. Just imagine from that one seed how much you are growing. That's a mangonomy, economy of mangoes, mango economy. I call it mangonomy, mangonomy. And what they produce, that one seed produces nutritious, delicious, sweet, fragrant, juicy food, which is healthy. Tell me which economy is as good as mango economy?
Yes, I do know. I love that word, Satish.
Real regenerative economy is a mangonomy, mango economy, economy of nature. Economy of nature is the real economy. What we call economy in the world is not economy. When you talk about economy, they say balance sheets, business plan, bottom line, profitability, banking, accounting. That's not economy. That's a moneynomy.
It's
Moneynomy, management of money. Economy means ecosystem, ecological system. An ecosystem is so beautiful and so miraculous and so magical and so majestic and so magnificent, and we take part in that. That's a good economy. So economy of nature, economy of mango, economy of apple, that's the real economy. And you go to mango tree, never ask you, have you got a Visa card? Mango tree never asks you, have you got a wallet? Gives you freely, and gives to humans, animals, birds, wasps, bees, and then whatever you can't eat goes back to the soil. Mango economy and economy of nature has no waste and no pollution and no dustbin and no waste bin. That's a food economy. So food is so important, Morag, and you are a champion of food. You created permaculture movement in the world, and so you know better than anybody else, better than me. But I have 2 acres of garden, and I have 15 apple trees. In England I live, so we can't have mango trees, but I have apple trees. 15 apple trees. And last year I made 200 bottles of apple juice, of my own apples. And I have apple juice every day stored in my barn, in the cool. I have no freezer. I have no these kind of machines. I keep in the cool outdoor in the barn. And so, so mango economy, apple economy, economy of nature, food economy, that is so important, so precious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really looking at the root of that word eco, being ecology rather than focusing on the money. There's a question here. What can be done? Oh, here's a big question for you, Satish. What can be done about the size of our human population when we're talking about ecosystems?
So human population is a big issue, a big question. I would like to say that human population, if we can manage to have 1 or 2 at the most children and no more, restraint in having children is a good thing. And therefore, we must try to reduce our numbers because 8 billion people are already quite a lot for the planet Earth to sustain. But in addition to our numbers, also we need to look at the consumption. If everybody lived like an Australian or an American or a European, 8 billion people, we need 3 planets. We haven't got 3 planets. So our consumption and our use of materials must be restrained. Nothing should be used unless it's absolutely necessary. And so reducing our greed and depending and meeting our need, that should be okay. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that there's enough in the world for everybody's need, but not enough for anybody's greed. And so at the moment, not only we have a large numbers of people on the planet, but there are large numbers of greedy people wasting, and our resources are wasted and thrown away in the landfills and thrown away in the oceans and in the rivers and so on. So I think we need to do 2 things together to address the question of population. Number 1, we reduce the numbers. Number 2, we manage our consumption in a frugal way. So I have written a book called Elegant Simplicity. Elegant simplicity is to live frugally, live beautifully, live a good life, but without waste and without pollution. And so if we can reduce our consumption and not live so extravagantly and so wastefully, then numbers less and consumption less, then planet can look after everybody.
Thank you, Satish. Another question has come in from Victor saying, can we consider that with applying radical love, that you create for yourself a soft landing and accepting when your economy is collapsing? I think the question is sort of saying, when all of these things are collapsing around us, how can we create for ourselves, I guess, a community resilience using the concept of radical love, and also maybe the power of community too being a big part of things.
So I think collapsing, the idea of collapse, what is collapsing? What is collapsing? Soil is not collapsing, earth is not collapsing, forests are not collapsing, Mountains are not collapsing. What is collapsing is our industrial system. And that's not what's sustaining. So if we go back to something like permaculture, if we go back to land and learn to grow food and live frugally and simply and not have such an industrial waste and pollution and carbon emission, creating global warming and climate change and a kind of the temperature rising, all that, if we can stop, if that can collapse, I think I'll dance. I'll celebrate that kind of collapse. So I don't think we should worry about this industrial system collapsing. What is not going to collapse is trees are not going to say, I'm not going to produce mangoes and apples. Trees are not going to say that I'm not going to produce wood. And the cows are not going to say, I'm not going to produce milk. And the clouds are not going to say, I'm not going to produce water and rain. So nature can sustain and recover and regenerate and look after all living beings on this planet Earth as long as we keep our numbers down. So nature is not going to collapse, in my view. It's the industrial system, the mechanistic system, and we have created this infrastructure too much, too many motorways and highways and airports and seaports and a kind of business parks and industrial estates and supermarkets and shopping malls. Let this all collapse. We don't need to worry about it. What we want to is forest, land, animals, humans, oceans, water, nature, and imagination, poetry, art, music, culture, and technology, which is aiding humans and not replacing humans. So if we can create that kind of balance, then I think we can have a very long future for humanity.
Thank you. It's a really challenging question that I know a lot of people are asking. And, how do we face this? Tipping points are happening, change is happening. But as you say, nature is inherently regenerative. And if we go with the patterns, and Fritjof came and shared his principles of life. And, that was one of the core principles, that nature is inherently regenerative. And so if we work with that inherent nature of nature, we have a possibility. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Sana Rao has said, many people have grown up as consumers. How do we live in an inclusive way, introduce radical love and elegant simplicity to our friends who are so far away from that mindset?
I've already answered that question in my talk, that we need to start with education. And we need to teach our younger generation, future generation, people who are coming up to lead the society, people who are at this moment age 10, 11, 12, 15, and 20. From 10 to 20, that age group, if they can learn to grow food, to learn permaculture, to learn agroecology, to learn radical love, to learn elegant simplicity, and live frugally, and have less consumption of material goods and a more time for art, culture, music, poetry, painting, dancing, friendship, family, and walking in nature and enjoying life, celebrating life. That's why we need to focus on, rather than more consuming, more shopping, more production, more consumption. That is going to not last forever. So we need to create consumption of non-material goods like art and culture and music and poetry and love and friendship and family and walking and enjoying life. So we are not enjoying life in this modern world. We are just under pressure. We have no time to enjoy. We have no time for write poetry. We have no time for singing. We have no time for dancing. So we need to create that time so that from 10 to 20, that age group, we need to train them so they can live a good life in the future.
Yes, thank you. Dance and sing and play and create spaces for that, and invite people to come and play with you and come and cook with you and come and eat with you. And when you're sharing a gift, share a gift that's grown in your garden and just live it and demonstrate it and be the change, as Gandhi said. I think that's probably the last question we'll take. Thank you, Satish, so very much for being with us here today. It's my absolute honor and pleasure to have you here as part of the International Festival of Ideas here in the Permaculture Education Institute.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Satish. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sense Making in a Changing World from the International Permaculture Festival of Ideas. Check out the show notes below to find a link to Satish's website and to the new film about his life, and to where you can find all the conversations at the International Permaculture Festival of Ideas. And also check the show notes for where you can find details of our permaculture courses and resources. Make sure you're signed up to hear news and updates, and come and join us at the Permaculture Education Institute to learn practical skills for designing and teaching permaculture and making a good livelihood while living a permaculture-inspired, one planet way of life.